the topic of today's episode is another community Q&A. We have 5 more questions to kind of build onto the last episode we did. I was in a little bit of a hurry to get here. You guys called me 20 minutes ago. I was like, you're late.
Yeah, you're being the cool guy. You're being fashionably late, keeping us waiting. It's like you're just game playing. That's what you do, man.
It's not. No. This is my week where Yen is actually she was in San Francisco doing some work stuff. So it was my week to take care of the house and the children. And I have royally effed up that responsibility 3 times this week. I have just straight up forgotten about things. One of them was this podcast recording session. Another one yesterday was my actual children. I left them at school. The school called me and I'm like, oh my gosh.
It just lets you know how busy you are right now. Like, I think we're all just busy right now.
I got to figure out a way to anyway.
What was the first one? I'm just curious.
The first one, I can't remember. I know that yesterday's was the second time and I can't remember what the first one was, but it was equally not good.
It's not like an anniversary or something, right?
No.
Okay, good.
I can't remember what it was.
That's okay. It just reflects
on it.
how busy you are, man.
Anyway, today's episode, community questions. Why don't we start with an intro?
All right, let's do it, man.
Welcome to 12-Week Relationships. This is your place for better relationships in weeks, not years. When we say, I forgot to say, hi, I'm Pye.
Hi, I'm Dr. Glenn.
So when we say relationships, we mean all of them, starting with yourself, working on outwards, and yes, of course, including your marriage, your love. But everything else is important too. We have, though, been spending a lot of time on romantic relationships, and today we're going to continue that because most of the questions that we got, I think it's just natural that we get a lot of questions on the topic of love because it seems to be the biggest pain point that everybody has.
Yeah, it brings out your greatest wound, so it totally makes sense.
Yeah. So let's start. We're going to start with number 1. And if my audio sounds weird, it's because I'm looking away to actually read your questions. By the way, if you guys want to send us questions, you can jump onto Instagram at 12-Week Relationships. You can send us a message. I also we do respond to comments and things, and sometimes we'll see them in comments and put them over there. But DMing is the best way. Also, just before we get into this, make sure you sign up for the newsletter because we're working on our online coaching programs. And we'll be making them known and available first to all of our newsletter peeps.
Yeah, it's growing and expanding. Really exciting.
Yeah, that's actually what I was doing when I forgot about this recording.
It's all good, man. Fashionably late, leaving us hanging. It's all
Working
good,
on our
man.
online.
All your game playing. It's fine.
It's not. Yeah, it was World of Warcraft. I'm just kidding. It was online coaching. Okay, let's do this one. My partner. This person's specifically talking about a boyfriend, although this can go both ways. But basically, she's noticing kind of inappropriate behavior with the opposite sex. Like he likes to flirt a lot. So she asked, is it normal to just kind of have a flirty personality? Which is what he says. He's like, I'm just flirty. I've heard this so many times, dude. I'm just flirty. That's my personality type.
But what does flirty mean? Like where's the line?
Yeah, this is kind of a challenging one to address because I feel like I generally just try to be nice and, kind in the sense of like, I'm just nice. I like being kind to people. And Yen at the beginning was noticing that girls would often think that I'm flirting with them, but in reality, I'm literally just being kind, like having a conversation and, how are you doing today? And that kind of stuff. So I think that sometimes being kind can be interpreted as being flirty, depending on the situation. But I also think there's a hard line and a difference that most people know of when you're actually being flirtatious, which the flirting kind of becomes more sexual. It becomes more like you're implying things, teasing, joking, smirking, like all that kind of stuff. Stuff that you typically expect, right? And that, to me, when you're in a committed relationship, is a big no-no.
No, I agree. And then the other thing, too, is you have to know your partner.
Yeah.
Right? Like in that example, you're just a very nice person. You're a game player, like you were doing that to me and Anthony today. But besides that point, you know what?
Haven't played a video game in I don't know how long.
I'm talking about emotional games, bro.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You're playing games with us.
Hardcore emotional game
Exactly
player.
Right.
Yeah.
But
no,
anyway.
I can recall this one time. We were on a camping trip, and I'm with Yen, and we're with our kids camping, and this woman comes over and just like asks, "Hey, I don't know how to start a fire. Can you help?" And I'm an Eagle Scout. I don't know if you know this about me.
No, you mentioned that.
Oh,
yeah.
I wear it on my sleeve. Like, dude, I'm an Eagle Scout.
That's awesome, man.
So, I was a Boy Scout, and I don't know a ton about camping, but I know a little bit about, how to start fires and things like that. So I was like, sure, of course. And I went over and we have our other two friends that are there with us too. So our kids, our other two friends, their kids. And this is when Yen and I first started dating. And so this woman was like, "Oh, that's so sweet of you." And I was like, "Whatever, I'm just going to come help you start your fire." We're just having it's literally right next to our campsite. And I walk back and Yen goes, "I don't think you realize that she thought you were flirting with her." And I go, "Really? I'm just trying to be nice." And Justin's like, "Yeah, that's kind of just Pye. He's just nice." And I go, "What are you supposed to do?"
But that's really interesting though. Like, what does that mean? So this is what I mean by that. Like flirting, if you're just a nice person and that's who you are, how can that be flirting? Because that's just your natural state and personality, right? I think flirting comes to the point where if you would do that with Yen, if you're going to do something with someone else that you would do with Yen that's in this intimate setting, or you're right, like it's sexual or something in that space, then you're crossing a line. But even like sometimes people can take like joking around as flirting. What if that's just your nature, right? So
I'm gonna sound really dumb right now because I don't even know what flirting looks like anymore. But I'm gonna say this: like, if you're making innuendo, like I'm going, "Oh man, I like that dress on you."
Yeah,
like that's
an obvious flirting. But when you're helping out, okay, let me ask you a question. So when you were helping set the fire, well, first of all, if you were a city person like me, then the answer is like, "No, I don't know how to set fires. You're on your own, girl." And then that would have been the end of the story. But that's beside the point, right? But the point is like, okay, what were you doing? Like, were you chatting with that person? I mean, like, what were you like? Like, what were you doing?
It was like basic conversation, like, "Oh, what brings you out into the forest?" Like it was like really basic stuff. It wasn't like anything personal. And here's the thing: is that Yen was never accusing me of flirting. What I'm saying is that both of them recognized something that I didn't, which was that this person was perceiving it as me flirting with them. What was different, what was unique to me was that I never was accused of that before. When I was being nice or just, kind to somebody, and I differentiate nice with like, you're nice when you have an ultimatum. You're kind when you're not looking for anything. So I just try to be kind. I'm not trying to get anything out of anybody. I'm just treating people like I want to be treated. But nobody ever thought that it was flirty until I lost a bunch of weight, got in shape, and started dressing better. Then it became flirting. Which was very odd to me.
So you became more of a threat.
I think it's because I was now perceived as like a threat. I was perceived as like an option, as opposed to before when I was just, overweight and not well dressed. I was just the funny fat kid.
Yeah. So once again, just come to the other side. Come to this side where you don't work out that much, man. It just makes life easier.
So if you don't want to be perceived as flirting, just gain a bunch of weight and wear ugly clothes.
Care. Exactly, man. Yeah. Problem solved. Then don't be an Eagle Scout.
Okay, let's get back to this question. The question is, is it okay? First, I would say there is no such thing as a flirtatious personality type. If you're in a committed relationship and you're openly making these, jokes and innuendo and flirting and saying that I'm just flirty, that's a pretty big red flag to me. And I think it's a sign of a couple things. One is potentially an insecurity where you're using this attention from other people, opposite sex, to make yourself feel better. And also a lack of boundaries.
No, agreed. So like those are like overt examples. But what about like if your personality is just being nice or have a sense of humor, and then let's say your partner takes it that way?
That's where you have to distinguish. And that's why I gave the other example of like, okay, I guess in some cases, some people can perceive just being kind as being flirtatious.
Sure.
But I do think it's pretty easy to recognize what is what, when and the funny thing is like, I guess it goes back to, would I say this to somebody in front of my partner and feel comfortable doing so? Would I act this way, but then if someone's judgment is kind of skewed on this anyway, maybe they would do it in front of their partner because they don't have the best judgment and boundaries anyway.
Yeah. I think once again, it comes to like three things. Like one, overt things like, hey, I like your dress. Like you just don't do that. That's number one, right? Number two, if you're the partner and then they're doing things within their own personality and they're really not doing anything to try to pick up or like trying to get anything from that person, then you respect that. And then number three, if the other person is actually like hitting on your partner, and then they need to respect you and pull away from them to make sure that they're not doing that.
For sure. For sure, there needs to be this, like if you bring it to your partner's attention and they don't change the behavior and it's making you uncomfortable, that's an issue. So when Yen saw that, okay, I'm the same way with guys as I am with girls, and there is no, I literally am just, what brings you to the forest today? Like that is not flirtatious to me. So when it comes down to that kind of stuff, I think you can use your judgment in that, but know that if you are in a committed relationship, it is very strange that someone is flirting in front of you or just whether it's not in front of you at all, just that they're flirting while they're in a committed relationship.
Okay, so when we're saying flirting, that means that they're trying to hit on another person.
They're looking for sexual attention. It's more than just, how are you, or a basic conversation. It's like, oh man, I wish I looked like that today. I don't know if you'd say. See, this is what I mean. It's like I don't know how to flirt. So anything that I say clearly shows that. But I think it's more sexual in nature.
Are you sure you weren't like, what you doing in the forest, girl? Like it wasn't like that, huh? No.
I've never said anything like that in my entire life.
But
I could see you saying something like that.
I probably could, because I can't do fires, man. So can you help us do a fire? Like probably.
What you do in the forest, girl? You like me?
Would you like to help us set up a fire? Something like that. I'd probably do that.
All right. Next question.
Yeah.
I think we beat that one down well and nicely. Kind of like the Chris Rock and Will Smith discussion.
Yeah. That went on for a while.
Next one. What do I do when my partner doesn't really display understanding? This one's a big one, right? Because it is a core human need for us to be able to feel understood, to be under. And here's the thing: is that you could be confident and you can really not care about. You can do the work to get yourself to a place where, like I would say, I really don't care about the people that I don't know. Like people online, they can think whatever they want to think of me, but I still do care and I do want to be understood by the people that I love. Mm-hmm. So when someone that I care about says things to me like, oh, you're overreacting, or you shouldn't think that way, or I'm sure this wasn't meant like this, or they kind of invalidate your perspective, your feelings, that sucks.
No, it's very hurtful and it's very dismissive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think number one, if your partner is doing that to you and then they're saying those things, number one, you should feel that way. You should feel dismissed because that's what's happening. And then make sure that you have a conversation about it.
I was going to say punch him in the face, but I guess a conversation works too.
Yeah, conversation works. Yeah. I mean, if not, then punch him in the face, man. They deserve it.
Boxing background.
Yeah.
The LMB boxing.
The LMB.
LMB boxing, Glenn.
But definitely. But the other thing too is, you have to be introspective too, because sometimes like people are expecting emotional support when they're actually not giving it.
Sure.
Right. So for example, like if I'm coming to you and then I'm coming in a very angry state, and I'm expecting you to provide support, I'm not really holding space, or I'm not coming to you. I'm just coming angry.
Give me an example of that.
Like, hey man, I had a shitty job at work today, man. You understand that? And
you had a shitty job at work?
I had a shitty day at work today.
Okay.
Sorry, man. I had a shitty day at work today. And then this is some effed up stuff that happened.
You gotta get all like angry, bro.
Because you said, give me an example. Yeah.
Glenn goes back to his roots. Okay. So I come at you and I'm like, man, I had such a shitty day. I wish I was just at home, like chilling like you.
You're over exaggerating.
Well, that would be me coming to you,
okay,
expecting understanding, but I'm also attacking you in the process, right? Because I'm saying like, I wish I just had something easy like you,
Oh,
you missed that part.
I missed that part. It sounded so nice. I could see why the forest looked like flirting, because I was like, oh, that was very pleasant.
I can't even be angry.
I'm not even upset. Okay, let's do it again.
Okay, sorry. I come to you and I'm like, man, I had a shitty day at work today. I wish I was just able to stay home like you.
Yeah, see, that would be an insult. And I'd be like, okay, well, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I would respond that way.
Well, you'd probably start defending and be like, dude, my day was difficult too. And then I can't be upset at the fact that you're not being understanding. But then on the flip side, you know, if I came home and was like, man, I had such a difficult day at work, I wouldn't say shitty, okay? I had such a difficult day at work, and then you said something invalidating, like, I'm sure it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, that really sucks.
Yeah.
That really sucks. I mean, I guess what I'm saying, like, it is dismissive. That whole thing is very dismissive. But, you know, just introspection wise, if you're coming really angry, that's going to make it really hard for a person, you know, for your partner to connect with you and then to have that expectation, like, you need to support me. Well, you're already coming on really strong, so it's going to be really difficult.
Yeah, and then I do find that it helps, and I tell Yen this quite a bit, is you know, when she's coming to me, and oftentimes I'll just ask. So she'll come and she'll express something that's difficult, and I'll say, is this one of those moments you just want me to listen? Like, I do feel like it's okay to ask that, because I oftentimes want to solve. I think it's natural for, especially for guys, to like want to fix,
solve.
You know,
just do solve. This. Yeah. ABC.
And so asking the question and saying, you know, is this one of those cases that you just want me to listen, and going from there. And I think it's also okay to remind your partner when they go to that space of, you know, downplaying or whatever it is. It's one of those, hey, you know, you're making me feel like you don't understand my perspective. I just want you to understand. And it's important to kind of remind and bring them back to that space to help them, because I don't know that that's a skill that a lot of people know or understand.
No, I mean, you're very caring. Like that shows, like, you know, how caring you are as a person. But I think in the least,
I'm flirting with you right now.
I could tell that you're flirting with it. I'm receiving it right now. You are flirty, man.
I don't even know the meaning of that word.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what a flirt would say. But anyway, what were we talking about again? See, now I lost track.
Bro.
Yeah.
We were talking about like just bringing your partner back to the space of how to.
Yeah. I mean, so if you have an understanding partner like yourself, then that's great. But if not, like, I had to learn at the beginning, like I was getting like crazy when my crazy work environment states where it was like really traumatic. And then I would be like, oh my God, like it was too overwhelming for my wife because it was so traumatic. So I had to like really like calm myself down and then talk in a way where it was calm, because instead of just unloading on her. So I had to learn how to do that and be considerate, and then she was being considerate back.
That's funny. Do you know our next question? Because you kind of led into the next question.
That was the plan, man.
So the next question actually came from another coach, an awesome coach that we follow on TikTok, and she asked, like, can we go into the subject of, you know, not treating your partner like a therapist, or basically coming home and kind of just unloading. This happens a ton where you come home after, you know, a difficult day, and you might go for 30 minutes, for 60 minutes just talking, and the other person is just silent, just listening.
Yeah.
And I find myself, like, when I get on one of those days, when I get home, I'll actually sit in the car. There's certain things that one trick or technique that I learned from, I'll say from my Mormon days, when I was practicing, I remember this talk that someone gave that said, you know, after a hard day at work, when I get home, I remind myself before I walk through the door that I'm about to do my most important work. So when I get home after one of those difficult days, I'll just sit in my car and kind of remind myself for a couple minutes that I'm about to go in and do some of my most important work. And part of that is reminding myself to not unload, to leave space for kind of a mutual conversation, not to just be going on for 30 minutes.
Yeah, because it's unfair to your partner, because you come home and all of a sudden you just unload. It's like, whoa, it's going to be like this tornado feeling that they're going to feel.
Yeah.
You're putting them on the spot, and you're literally like traumatizing them.
Well, you pay a therapist to sit there and hold space and listen and help you address your issues and that kind of stuff. You're not paying your partner to do this. So
no, I agree.
In my opinion, there two things have to happen. I think there needs to be space in that for you understanding that they probably had a difficult day and they have plenty of things that they want to share as well. Whether they had a difficult day or not, they have things that they want to share too, right? So making sure that in that conversation, there's space for an actual conversation. And number two, recognizing the fact that venting is not quality time. It is emotionally draining from the relationship. So if you're going to go into that and your partner's going to help you to process, then understand that you do need to make time then for quality time, for actually meaningful engagement that can kind of help to rebuild and strengthen the foundation of the relationship, because venting doesn't do that. It takes away. And we actually had a couple that had this issue, because one of the partners was in a really bad work relationship. Like, they just had a really bad work environment.
And then the expectation was like, she could just unload on her man, and it was overwhelming him. So finally, it got to the point where like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Like you need to come home, you need to get yourself together, have a calm conversation. But then like if you're going to have a venting session like that, he needed to be prepared.
For sure.
Like maybe this can happen like midweek, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when the kids are gone, I'll give you the space, but in return, I need a night out.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go out with my friends and I need to let loose. And that agreement helped to kind of counterbalance the things that she was going through.
Yeah, I think it's worth, again, going back to Gottman Institute has that number, right? Like in general, the number of positive to negative interactions in a relationship has to be like 15 to 1.
Yeah, that's the ideal. 10 to 1 at least, 15 to 1.
Yeah, and the number is almost less important than just recognizing that positive interactions have to be far more than negative ones.
Yeah.
Venting is a negative interaction.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do it, not only should the other person be prepared, but you should understand that this is your one. There now needs to be 10 to 15 positive interactions to kind of make up for the emotional draw that you just took on the relationship.
No, agreed. And it's understanding, instead of making an expectation, that's a sacrifice that's, the partner is doing for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you do need to vent, like if you're needing to vent on a daily basis, therapy time.
Go see someone.
Go see somebody.
Yeah. Take a boxing class or something.
Boxing class.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Is it because you're venting?
It helps. I do feel lighter though.
Jiu-jitsu helps tremendously.
Jiu-jitsu helps too, but I like standing up more than being on the ground. Yeah.
You just didn't get to the place where you were choking people. Because when I'm choking people, like I can feel like my venting frustrations just kind of like go. But you gotta stick around for like a year or so to get to that place.
Yeah, I just couldn't do it. Like I went to a Muay Thai place. I'm going off subject, but I went to the Muay Thai place, and then, like Rocky 3, like the Eye of the Tiger, like they're like, go back to your roots. And then the people that are trained, they're like, I want hardcore. Like they're hitting tires and stuff. I was like, nah, I'm good, man.
No, I'm good.
Like this isn't me, man. This is not my stage of life.
This is why you pick the more chill Muay Thai gym.
30 minutes. You just go in and out. It's kind of fun, and it was fine. So that's where I'm at.
I gotta go try this with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Oh, this one's an interesting one. I feel like I should bring my laptop over here just so I'm not like looking off the screen the whole time. I'm struggling at the end of a relationship with someone that I love, and I feel like there was divine intervention in how we met. We really are perfect. He's classic avoidant. Any strategies, and I assume that, she's anxious. Any strategies in getting through the heartache. Oh my goodness. You want to start with this one?
So, once again, like there's not a lot of information, but what I will say is like usually when you feel like you've met the one, and then you have this kind of euphoric feeling, like this is it, and you're planning everything, and this is destiny, that's a sign that that's a trauma relationship. It's a shared trauma relationship. And she said he's an anxious avoidant, right?
Well, yeah, following that we really are perfect for each other.
Yeah.
Then she compares their trauma, like they're basically their behavioral responses due to trauma. That's was her gauge for why they're perfect.
Right. And she's seeing only in the lens of her own wounds and pain, versus a real intimate relationship is you have your wounds, but then you have your healthy components, and you're working on celebrating the healthy parts of you while working through your wounds. This is just like I'm fixing my wound through this person and I'm healed, and it feels like it's the beginning of everything, and that's not the case.
Yeah, the other thing that I notice in kind of the way that she's interpreting the relationship is anytime you feel like, this is what terrifies me about religion, about fate, about the universe, about any of those things, is that anytime you feel like this is the one, that this is some divine intervention,
It's a bad sign.
That's not a good place to be, because it doesn't leave you with very many options, right? If this is divine intervention, then you better make it work no matter what, because God said you got to do this. And I was in that place myself where I felt like in my first marriage that, God had joined this thing. So I stayed in what was inherently broken and toxic for 14 years because, well, God put this together. So I had to. It just leaves you no space for the other side of the conversation of like, no, this is just two people that, really don't have a healthy relationship.
It's too absolute, number one. And then once again, if you're in that space and you feel like it's destiny, it's baggage.
Yeah.
Your baggage is coming
There's
out.
a lot of underlying issues.
And it's coming from desperation and pain. So once again, that Eddie Murphy analogy about the cracker. When you're hungry and you eat a cracker, you're like, oh, this is the best cracker I ever had. It's salty, it's soft, but it's just a cracker, right? Same thing, like a relationship is probably just a relationship.
Literally
right?
every time you bring up that analogy of Eddie Murphy and cracker, I think it's going to be some like racial joke, like cracker, like being white guy. You've said it probably 10 times, and every single time my mind goes to that.
It highlights desperation. It's just a cracker, man.
You're right.
It's a saltine.
To give an example, Dr. Glenn's still stuck on the cracker. To give an example, though, I can go into my personal life and say I did this very same thing. When I first met the woman who became my ex-wife, it was kind of like, well, we both speak the same languages. We both spoke Cantonese and Mandarin and English. And I can't date somebody that's, from Utah because they won't understand who I am. And this has to be God. And God said that this is, this is all the same reasoning and rationale. But when you back this up for a second, all of those arguments are insane. Because first, let's say that I did want to meet someone who spoke the same languages as me. There's literally billions of people that speak Cantonese and Mandarin and all those languages, right? There's millions that speak all three of them. How crazy of a statement is it to think that I can't date somebody that grew up in Utah because they won't understand me? That's just insane. But these were the things that were going through my head, and it must be fate because we both met when I was, in this place. And how random is that? It's just as random as when you meet other people. Like but you leave no space for the fact that I knew going into it that there was major issues. But guess what? I'd convinced myself that this was God and the universe and all this stuff. So I dismissed those.
You let it go.
And I dismissed it for another 14 years. I just stuck my head in the sand and kind of just went with it.
And then the scary thing is, once again, it's so absolute. It's either you're gonna force it to work out, or it's just gonna end up in disaster.
Yeah. So if you say that we're perfect for each other, and this is the last piece that I would go into, I never want to see one of our clients, if they're going to say we're perfect for each other, you don't want to hear them talking about their trauma, why we're perfect for each other because we share the same trauma. You want to hear we're perfect for each other because we share the same values, we share the same interests, we're relatable, these are the conversations that we have. This is the stuff that you'd actually build a relationship on.
Well, the other thing too is if a person comes and says that, they're in an emotionally unavailable space. So then it's just like counter arguing the fact that you guys aren't perfect because that's why you guys are here, right? So it just diverts from the whole process of actually getting to a healthy space to try to work this out.
Yeah.
Because it's just a cracker, man.
It's just a cracker.
It's just a cracker.
And by cracker, we're talking the actual cracker, not like a white person.
Saltine, man.
I saw what was it? I think it was Tom Segura had this really funny bit that was like, so we got to just take race out of all of our jokes. And he's like, nope, not quite. You know what? Like racial slurs everybody can use? All the white ones. Like cracker. And then I don't even know them all. Honky. And nobody's going to get offended over that. So anyway.
All right, man. So you call me a racist.
He has given us permission to use those slurs.
It's all good, man.
And because Tom Segura says it, it is law.
Okay.
He actually really is funny, though.
Oh, he is. He's a really funny guy.
And to all my white friends, I'm sorry. Okay. I don't know what a healthy relationship looks like. I've been through 2 emotionally abusive marriages. Do you have any advice on recovery? I'll let you take this one.
Yeah. So number 1, please take time to heal before getting into another relationship.
How much time? There's a formula. I want you to take 12 months and divide it by the number of years that you're married and then multiply it by 4, divide it by the amount of days left in the month, and that's your time.
Okay, that works for me, man. I like that formula, man. I mean, I think getting to the point where you can look back, like if you can trace back, like she said, two marriages that are emotionally abusive, right? So if she looks at those 2 marriages and then previous relationships, and she can trace a pattern and see like, okay, what's the type that I'm attracting and how am I behaving? And there's like a mental and emotional expansion taking place. Then if she can see it and honor like, okay, these are the reasons why I'm choosing these people,
Yeah.
Once she can understand why she's making those choices and why she's attracted to those choices, then she's ready to move on.
I agree. I hate, and that whole formula thing was a joke. I hate those formulas. I hate people when they come to me and they say things like, oh, I heard that for every year that you're married, you should take 1 month.
1 week or whatever, yeah.
Whatever. This stupid. Along with what you just said, what I would say is, if, you need to know why you chose those relationships. That's number one. The second thing I would say is, once you are comfortable with being alone, with who you are, like you look in the mirror, you don't feel an anxiousness. You're good with your quiet evenings. You're good to be alone. You're good to go out. You're good in your own head and in your own space. Then I'd say you're ready. If you feel anxious, like, oh my gosh, I'm alone and I got to figure this out because this is a train wreck. And if you can't calm your mind and stop this whole conversation of how shitty you are and you're not in a good space, like you need to learn how to love yourself a little bit first. So I would say, if you can love yourself and you can answer that question of why you chose those relationships, you're good. Whether that takes months or a year or a couple weeks.
And it sounds simple, but that's a lot of work. Self-reflection, looking back at your relationship history, the choices that you made, and then, like you said, being comfortable with, okay, I accept where I am right now.
Well, the other side of that too is that oftentimes, depending on whatever previous relationship you were in, you might have been doing a lot of that work during the relationship, right? This was, in my particular case, I had felt alone for a decade of my marriage. It was probably even more than that. I mean, a year or two into it, I didn't feel like I was with a partner. It was just me doing my own thing. And so it was, over a decade of just learning how to be comfortable with who I am, how to not depend on this marriage for my happiness, how to so by the time that I was actually single, I was fine. I was like, I'm good. But I think people can often dismiss the fact that a lot of the work you might be doing while you're already in that place. But again, when you can answer the question I think you have to answer the question. You also have to be comfortable with yourself in your own space. You have to be able to love yourself.
No, for sure. And then for this person, once they're doing that and then they start dating again, if you're starting to choose healthier partners, then that's a really good sign that you're moving in that space.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, the emotional abuse side of that is an interesting one, because that can make you, that's one of those things that you do have to, I don't believe it's possible to resolve all these issues before you go into another relationship. So you just have to understand that you are going to bring certain baggage into all of your relationships, whether they're friendships, they're family relationships, or, a future romantic relationship. But the emotional abuse side, or physical abuse is another huge factor. But speaking of just emotional abuse, you do need to be able to understand and recognize which parts because you're going to be triggered in quite a few different situations. You have to recognize that in those moments, what is actually happening right now and how are you responding to it versus what pieces of that trigger are actually from that emotional abuse, from those prior relationships. Because you'll have the tendency to basically blame your current relationship for past problems.
No, agreed. And then even more specifically, like when working with someone that was recovering from abuse, like it got really specific. Like, so when she started dating people, and then if she started to feel euphoric, like, oh my God, this guy's amazing, that's probably an abuser. And she had to acknowledge that I'm feeling euphoric. I feel like I'm on cloud 9.
Yeah.
That's your radar letting you know your unhealthy wounds are coming out. Yeah. You don't choose that one. You need to cut that off. So we had to do opposite action.
Interesting.
This guy is he's all right. It's calm. It's calm but we have similar interests. You need to start making those decisions. And then choice by choice, that euphoric feeling started to die off because she was literally in those moments making the healthier choice. And, that's how you can know the distinction. So when you're in this kind of euphoric state, like, oh my God, and then you feel like excited, convicted, but scared at the same time, that lets you know that you're in your trauma wound. Yeah. Versus like, okay, this feels really safe. This is good. Okay, cool. I feel comfortable right now.
I'm going to give you another one. I'm going to go back to one of my personal experiences because this one is a personal one. I don't want to pull client stuff into this. But one of my personal experiences was, see, in my previous marriage, there was really very little like sexual intimacy. It was something that I gave up on just a couple of years into the relationship. And whenever there was intimacy, it was very much just kind of like a physical thing and be done and move on. I kind of felt like the dog that was begging for her. So I just stopped asking. So when I actually got into a healthy relationship, that side of this kind of trauma was coming out in the sense of now I'm dating somebody in Yen who actually wants to be intimate, but I didn't believe that she wanted to be intimate. So it was like, it was weird to me. Like, why are you wanting to do that? Do you want something from me? Are you, this feels strange. And she would say, no, I just want to be intimate with you. I just want to be close to you. And that was me having to go, okay, I got to process this because I never had that before. Mm-hmm. Usually if there was anything sexual intimacy wise, it was me chasing, it was me acting like the dog, and this is not okay. And then it flipped. And so it took me a good couple of years before I could just be comfortable with her initiating intimacy.
And then that shows what intimacy means, right? It's like you're choosing something healthy and you're accentuating your healthy sides and working through your wounds secondarily versus the wounds dictating everything that you do.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And that's what people need to do. That's how you heal your trauma and wounds in present time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we got our 5 questions.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to start doing some Q&A on friendships and family relationships and, my mom is doing this. What should I do? And Glenn's like, I've been there, done that. LMB.
Let me tell you about my... I could go on and on with that one. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're done for this episode. We hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, well, there are a couple things we would love. It is completely free and it helps us out to do this. If you guys don't mind, hop onto the iTunes store and leave a review for 12-Week Relationships. Yeah, we love not only reading them, but it helps to grow the podcast, tell other people about the platform, all that stuff. And if you want one-on-one coaching, you can join our waitlist at 12weekrelationships.com. We are working on the waitlist. I think Dr. Glenn is booked out for quite some time, but the reason I was late today is because we're working on our online coaching program, which is going to make it so that we can serve quite a bit more people and we can serve people around the world, whereas we're kind of right now focusing on mostly locals, right? So if you sign up for the newsletter at 12-Week Relationships, we'll notify you as soon as that program is available. Also, any messages that we send out, we promise they're going to be awesome. They're going to be things that you can bring into your daily life, and you will never get spam from us. That's it. You got anything else?
That's it.
Okay. If you want to stay in touch with us, 12-Week Relationships, Instagram.
Yeah.
All right. All right. I'm just waiting for Glenn to say something.
TikTok. Yeah.
I'm trying to cut off everything that he said.
iTunes. Yeah. All of it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll see you guys next episode.
Thank you.